So next thing we got to talk about is Drigger. So we've known about Drigger. Drigger has been very much in circulation for a couple months at this point. It was very sad that Tripio got canned, and I'm never gonna let that go. But at least we do get a pretty good looking Drigger S remake here. Um, and we've seen like images like these before, but one thing that we haven't really seen yet is the box. And I think
That's the best part.
it
That's the
is.
only
For
part that I
sure.
really care about is having this box and displaying it like back there or something. I like I like the box, but I don't know. I'm just not like a big Drigger fan, but Drigger S especially, it's like okay, cool. It's cool. It's fun, but you know,
I think the big thing to get excited about is point. That's apart from that, I mean, like the Drigger blade is going to be fun. Like I love the Dronzer blade, even though it sucks. It's still a lot of fun to use, especially when you win. But for this one, I think the big important part is the fact that they stuck point on it, which we have not seen point since Lion Claw back in October. So I think
mm,
it's overdue. But I guess that kind of draws the hype in for it a little more, so people who don't want to, just stack up on Lion Claws can grab a Drigger and have 2 points to test out. Not happy about 480. I think the 80 ratchets on the plastic gen bays is a little ridiculous, considering that normally they were like relatively chunky, and for this gen that would translate to it being a bit shorter.
yeah,
Um,
they weren't really that tall, you know.
hmm They're a lot more. Yep, and we got Elliot's got one right there.
Very, very short compared to X bays.
hmm Yeah,
Yeah,
there's
so the 80 is just
They're like
wild. I don't get that.
75% of the height of an X bay.
yeah, and that's an X Bay with a 60 ratchet on it. That's not even the
Yeah, this is Cheeto.
yeah the goat, but
hmm
at least points on it. So yeah, that's
Yeah,
kind of
I mean,
that in the
like
box.
Jake mentioned, I'm definitely excited for the box. It's gonna look nice next to my Dronzer, my OG Dronzer, and my X remake. It's gonna look really nice in the display for sure.
hmm Yep.
Too
And
bad it's gonna be like a copy the paste than a
kind of
Dronzer, hopefully. But
kind of unrelated to this release, but um, part of me was kind of worried that the Dronzer box being kind of like how because they're modeling these boxes off of the plastic gin boxes. So there's my dog making an appearance. Um, but what I'm more excited for is the Storm Pegasus box because the box art for Metal Fight I think is still untouched. The Metal Fight boxes are still my favorite. I don't know what it is about them, but the aesthetic, the kind of the grunge, the graffiti aesthetic, um, yeah, I don't know. There's something about them that's just super clean to me. The boldness of like you see like where it says Bay Launcher, it's
hmm
got like a border around it. You see Jinka there, um, and that's the new boy. So that's the like Middle Eastern release too. But otherwise, it's pretty much the same. It's funny you can see how like the Pegasus hitting Dark Wolf is um, it's very 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 similar to what they do now. But I love you can see like the Japanese text on the side. I don't know the Metal Fight boxes, especially like zero G and 4D boxes, were just so good, and I really hope they stay as faithful to this as possible.
hmm
Yeah, like that
Yeah,
looks so good. That looks so good. I love that.
Yeah, I wasn't too huge on. Well, it could just be that I don't really care for zero G that much, but it's all right, I suppose. I'm not a huge fan of this style of boxing. But then to be fair, I really loved the Metal Fusion Hasbro boxes. Like I always mention this, but like the cylinder that they had that they stuck the bay in, I always loved that part of it because you got to see everything before you got it.
It definitely
hmm
like stood out on shelves too. I was never like the biggest fan of any of the boxes. for Metal Fusion, like the whole like Metal Saga here for Hasbro, but the blue and the yellow, the contrast was nice, and seeing the anime character is cool too. Although I definitely get why they stopped it because nobody wants. I'm sorry, but nobody's gonna want Doji's Bay, dude. Like, come on,
No.
nobody cares. Um, but yeah, and I love like the Japanese text. You know, what is it, the katakana or whatever. I don't know how to identify which one's which, but I don't know. It's definitely, it was a cool look for sure.
Yeah, and that was a very interesting thing I noticed about the Hasbro release is that they kept the Japanese text under it
Hmm.
in the I think it was in the anime trailer. It's either that or the yeah, I think it was just the anime trailer. So it'll be nice to see that because Burst didn't do that, and
Yeah, it's on the boxes too for
yeah,
the like the set. I'm looking forward to it.
yeah, 100%. So I wonder if that is any indication of. I guess that would be a good indicator of the quality because like early Metal Fight was it was identical to Karatomi Metal Fight.
Almost, yeah. It was pretty close.
Yeah, I mean
It was
like
like 95% basically. The face bolt and some of the plastic on the energy rings were a little bit different, I think.
yeah, I think there were a couple of the stickers that they changed and they edited a lot of them to not say hybrid wheel system.
Hmm.
But like other than like relatively minor stuff, like you can just throw this in with your Takara Tomy Metal Fusion stuff, and it's all interchangeable, which is really nice. So it's gonna be good to see that we see that with Hasbro X right off the bat. I can use my Takara Tomy Beyblades with my Hasbro Beyblades, and it's not gonna have a huge impact, which I think
Yeah.
is a good thing. Speaking of Storm Pegasus, we got some interesting reveals, and I guess Ooh, oh wait, no, I put the image over here. I should have named these. We got a really good look at what to expect from the Valkyrie and Storm Pegasus remakes, and I gotta say, I think both of these look pretty good.
Yeah, I'd agree.
I know
They're going crazy.
there's some people out there who say Storm Pegasus looks really boring, but that's I think it's just a matter of opinion.
It's just, I mean, that's the thing is for Metal Fight is that a lot of people's issue with Metal Fight, looking back at it, is I think because of the hybrid wheel system, they everything had to be really round. Like the cores for everything is very round, and then you have to add on like the blade design like off of it, right? So that would translate really well to Beyblade X, right? Because if it has a super jagged edge, like on Valkyrie, as you see, they had to make a change to the disc, kind of the boost disc, to make it round out a little bit, or else it'd be too aggressive. For Metal Fight, they don't really have to do that. So, yeah, they didn't go crazy and add some like random effect or some piece that wasn't there. They pretty much just changed it over to the X template, you know. So some people it might be boring, and also Storm Pegasus isn't the Pegasus wheel isn't the most like competitive piece. So I don't think it's gonna change here for X, but it's faithful. It's a remake. It's exactly what they're supposed to do, you know.
Yeah. I mean, like, all the gripes, I think, between everybody, where it's like, some people are like, oh, the Plastic Gen ones look stupid, or the Metal Fight ones look boring, or the Burst one looks stupid. It's like, it's all a matter of opinion based on your preference for generation. But at the end
Yeah,
of the day, like, if you compare it to the original and you look at it in the mindset of, okay, this is meant to be remade for a new system entirely, I think everything that they've done so far in terms of, like, the important parts, which are the blades and layers and fusion wheels and all that, are pretty faithful, pretty accurate.
yeah. I think they did a good job. Whenever we saw the silhouette for Valkyrie a couple weeks ago, I was kind of worried because that's when we saw that they're gonna make the boost disc bigger or something to round it out. But now that we actually see the 3D model of it in color, it looks way better than I expected. And you can even see some of the very edges of the Valkyrie wings are like a separate piece,
Mm-hmm.
and that's metal as well. So I'm down. kind of a Dran dagger sort of effect, but I think it's great. I think they did a good job.
Yeah, and I mean, like it does still give you that three-bladed attack that Valkyrie has, because like boost is very smoothed over, where it's like you get the discrepancy in the blade there, you get like that gap, and then it kind of flows into
Yeah.
the main wing off of the boost disc. So it's not going to be like it's not going to perform super duper different from the original, which I think is also very important.
It's gonna be cool to see what their weights are compared to, because they already kind of nerfed the plastic gen. So is the metal fight the original metal contact? Are they gonna beef that one up, or the one that had like no metal on it burst? I really hope they keep them all. If they're gonna be less than the standard X base, I hope they all keep them like 2 to 3 grams less, and they don't like nerf one more than the other, and they make them all consistent so that they at least can be relative to each other. I hope the consistency is very similar across all their
Mm-hmm.
remakes.
For sure.
Yeah.
I think the big question for these two in particular is what are they going to do for the bits? Because with Plastic Gen, with Dronzer and whatnot, like those systems were a little bit more complex, and it's very early X, so we were not expecting anything like super duper major with them. Point and taper, very simple bits. But then these are very unique in the sense that they have rubber, and we haven't gotten Dragoon S yet, but these are like the first ones that we've seen renders of in specific, and we'll get to
Yeah.
Dragoon a little bit later. But there's a lot of question in, are they going to do rubber flat for Pegasus, and are they doing variable for Valkyrie? Which
No, I'll tell you right now what they're gonna do. Okay, for Storm Pegasus, it's gonna be a blue 360. It could do like a 960, but 960 is such like a weird shape. I don't think it'd fit. But they're gonna do a blue 360, and they're gonna do a red flat. Um, and then, or maybe even a red rush because it's a little bit thinner. Maybe that'd work out better. And then for Valkyrie, they're gonna do probably a. That one's a little bit tougher because I don't know how thick because the boost disc that you see on like around, I don't know how low that goes, right? So I
Mhm.
think they're either going to do a gray 360 or like a silver, and they're going to be like that's kind of the boost disc, or it could be blue, but that's I think gray or silver would make the most sense, and then they're going to do a black gear flat
Yeah,
for variable.
yeah. The gear flat one was like, well, let's see, you got the little spikes on variable. Oh, let's throw gear flat on it. I think that one
Yeah.
is pretty locked down. I know that there are a couple of burst fans that I've talked to that are like, oh, they're going to do a variable bit, and I'm like, no, they're not going to do a variable bit.
They're not going to give us, besides the blade itself, I don't think we're going to get any new ratchets or bits for these releases, except maybe for Dragoon we get something, because that's kind of like I don't know. I doubt that we're going to get any unique part besides the blade itself.
Yeah, I think like maybe the only like this is probably still very slim, but there are a couple of people that suggested a 260 for Pegasus because on the original parts, like the spin track has the little like tabs that go out at the top of it where it connects to the fusion wheel. So that
Yeah.
could be possible, but at the same time, that all depends when Pegasus comes out. If 260 is in the plans for the regular X system, because they're not going to create new parts for this, which is why variable is not going to happen. It's why rubber flat is not going to happen. They're just going to throw it on, whatever they have. Same with Dronzer and Drigger. Like as popular as Metal Fight and Burst have been, special treatment is not happening.
Yeah, it's a booster release, so they're cheaper. From what I see with boosters, Night
Lance.
Night Lance had a unique bit. Rhino Horn had one of those. Okay, well, I don't know. I think they're just gonna keep whatever parts have already been released. We know that Drigger is coming out in April. since they're showing us 3D models here, I assume we're not going to get any of these until earliest June. But I'm thinking maybe more July or August. I just don't know if they're going to release at the same time or if one right after another. But we could definitely see a few new parts before that, like with whatever the new next UX thing is, whatever the next BX thing is. Um, we're gonna get a couple of new bits and ratchets there as well for sure. So I would like for Pegasus to have like a 50 ratchet height. It wasn't that short of a bay for Metal Fight anyways. What was it on? 105?
Yeah, but Rubber Flag
Yeah.
gave it height too.
Yeah, so I would like to see it on like a 350, but I mean, we have like, I don't know, I kind of doubt we'll see a 50 for a while. Um, but I'm just thinking they're just going to give it a standard like 360 for both of them or 380. God, I hope not.
If they do, I'm gonna have a temper tantrum. It's not gonna be pretty. But yeah, with how they've done like all the ratchet heights thus far, I don't. It's like we got 60 and 80 for months, and there was nothing new. And it's like they have like the three other height slots there, and it was just like, so what now?
Yeah.
But I think we're gonna see 90 and 50 at some point. I just don't know. It's really a matter of when they decide to do that. Are they going to do it with new UX? Are they going to make it like exclusive to one bay? Because sometimes they do that. Like a lot of the early releases will share parts, especially with like Takara Tomy, and how they do the random boosters. You see like a lot of reused parts from early on in that system, and it would make sense for them to drop these later when they have more options, because people are going to want different heights, they're going to want different bits. I don't think people are going to be particularly happy if they just threw it on 60 or 80 and called it. So hopefully by the time we see these roll around, we'll have more height options, but they've been very restrictive with what they're doing with the ratchets for the most part, which is it's sad,
Yeah.
but we can hope.
Yeah, we talked about, I think, a while ago when we were talking about Dronzer that we were theorizing that they didn't want to put too much emphasis on picking up the remakes. They didn't want to put like a meta part into a remake and then have it take away from the actual X design. So, I don't think they're gonna probably do anything unique besides the blade. They'll probably just recycle parts and then make them. They'll probably be really good with other new parts, but I don't see them doing anything super special, sadly.
Yeah, I mean, it's mostly
Yeah.
just novelty.
I like the boxes.
Yep,
The
100%.
boxes and I think Valkyrie is. I'm worried because we only see the top down, so there's a chance they really flattened the wings out because they had a bit of an upward angle. If it keeps that upward angle and it has like the weight behind it, and it's not 31 grams, if it's like 33, maybe around the same weight as like Drawn Dagger, that could be like an actually good part too, you know.
Mhm.
So that's what I'm kind of looking forward to see if they did an upward attack, because we have Dran's sword, but that's kind of flat, sort of.
Shark Edge, Shark Edge is
Shark Edge is super,
Yeah.
but this would be a 3-blade attacker. I would say kind of like a 6, but yeah, the boost disc part does kind of mesh in, so you have a little bit of a gap. So I'm wondering if it's like the boost disc part is like flat and then it goes up, or if it's like a slow ramp and we just can't see it because of the angle. That's what kind of matters for performance.
I mean, based on the lighting of the one that's like the wing that's over on this side right here, the lighting of the model that they've shown, it looks like it gets darker when it goes down. It's like it's much lighter up here. So I think it is going to be like a 3-bladed upper attack. But then you also have these parts sticking out here. You have like the Valkyrie wings kind of poking out on these two ends. Not on this one as much. So I think it's going to be different from whichever side you get hit on by it. And then you also have like these parts that kind of stick out. But it just kind of looks like Boost is off-centered a little bit. Like it's kind of centered, but then like the rest, like this, where the screw is here, doesn't stick out nearly as much as this side, and the wings are very similar. So I
Yeah.
don't know if that's just the natural design or if that's just
I
3D modeling.
yeah, I did learn that literally I think it was like 5 months into X that like every X Beyblade is like off balance. Like with Dronzer, like one side is thicker than the other one. And so I don't know what the whole process is behind that, making it more of a smash attack or something. But I completely overlooked that, so I wouldn't be surprised if one piece of metal is thicker than the other one or something. I don't know. It's something that I didn't expect. And obviously it hasn't really affected the Beyblades yet, so we'll see.
I think they did that just so that you don't have perfect spinning tops that smack into each other at such high speeds, especially with how much stress the materials take on during battles. I think if they were like perfectly spinning smooth, I mean, it's why they didn't make Twisted Tempo perfectly round, and they had the stairwell in the fusion wheel, so that it wasn't gonna be absolutely nuts. So I mean, imagine that, and it's
Yeah, it's like a counterweight kind of.
yeah. I think that pretty much covers it. I think the last thing I kind of want to mention is the Takara Tomy box for Valkyrie, which
This is burst packaging was like too clean. I mean, it's pretty nostalgic now, so but it's nostalgic in a way it's like, oh yeah, I remember this was nice, but it hasn't been long enough where I'm like, dude, I miss this. This is so cool. Um it's like a cool idea and it's just very I don't know. It's very blocky. It's just it's got no like artistic part of it. You know, it's very clean. It's not edgy either, kind of like X is a little bit. Um, it's okay. Oh,
yeah,
got the Elliot Sampson hat making an
Mm-hmm.
appearance.
casually
Mm-hmm,
repping the
mm-hmm.
merch as per usual. Gotta have that subliminal advertising.
Oh, now it's not subliminal. Come on, man.
I foiled you. I knew it. Yeah, like I think the X packaging is like fantastic, but like you compare it to like Burst, like Jake's got the drawn sword box right there, and like you can see how it's like all smeared on the side, and like I will say like it is a bit too clean up at the top, but
Yes.
you're mostly focusing on that bottom part of the box, and I think that's what sells it the most. And especially with the Hasbro ones, which we'll get into shortly, I love what they did with the color palette for it. I think the Hasbro ones look better than the Takara Tomy ones. But in terms of like
Yeah.
Takara's Xbox, like especially on the back, like this is all right. But if you take a look at the back of the Xbox,
There's inspiration. There's three parts of a Beyblade in Japanese. You know, they look similar.
yeah. But I kind of like here it's all very straight and like it's
Mm-hmm, for
divided
sure.
diagonally, but it is too clean. I 100% agree with that. Whereas X, it's
You
all
also
like
have like half of the box. Like there's some like the safety-ish information right here, but if you cover just that, then you have the entire half. You see the character there. You see a much better action shot of the bay versus more of a realistic thing on Burst. But you literally get what is that? Like 60-ish% of the box is actually something. Meanwhile, for Beyblade Burst, you got to go like this, and everything is way more condensed. And I hate the text. I hate the
it's so boring.
A lot of warnings.
yeah, a lot of
Yeah.
warnings. It doesn't need to say boot like where it says the parts like V2 boost. It gives like a description of the part, I think, and that just adds
Clutter.
so much clutter.
Yeah, it's very there's like so much going on, and what sucks about it is like there's nothing going on here. It's like you got a bunch of like flat logos and a couple of graphics, the text against white, and then even here there's like really just this little blue stripe, and then the bottom stuff and vault and the text Beyblade that's been blown apart, and then just kind of a stylized version of the bay, and then you move to the back. Like this is clean, but like, you know, it doesn't like hurt your eyes to look at. Like it's presented very decently. And then you go to the back and it's just like, okay, what am I supposed to, what am I looking at? Whereas like on X, it's like right there. They give you the names and the stats. Jake, I don't think you turned your mic back on.
I'm back.
There we go. But yeah, and it does feel like way too, there's too much going on. But
and talking about like the Hasbro boxes, we'll get into that later. I'm not as bullish on the Hasbro boxes. I think they have pros and cons for sure, to where I still prefer the Takara Tomy ones. But there is one feature of the Hasbro boxes that I really like. That's really dumb and it's going to wear out. It's like, who cares? It's really not that big of a deal, but it's really smart and I can't wait till we get to that.
Is it this one?
Yep.
Yeah, that one's
Yep.
going to be fun to talk about. I wanted to put that one a little later on. So we'll definitely be getting into that one.
So stay tuned.
Yes.